Just like the book said.
Yes, sir.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. First, we need to do something real quick for the Board of Commissioners office. We need to go back into recess for a quick item for our Douglas County Sheriff's Office. So I'm going to bring us out of recess and go back into the Board of Commissioners meeting, and then we will go back into recess and open up Planning and Zoning Board meeting.
That's correct.
Tiffany Sensor. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So we're coming before you today asking for authorization for the chairman or vice chairman to sign a credit application with Deep South Industrial Services to guarantee payment for resurfacing at the Sheriff's Department and E911 building. The resurfacing is scheduled for Monday, and this document is needed in order for the project to proceed. We already have issued a PO, and it's ready to go. So we just need the board to vote on it to make sure this project stays on time.
Okay. All right, Board. You've heard Chief of Staff explain exactly what the Sheriff's Office need. May I get a motion to accept after we get a second? Okay. May I get a motion to accept this for the Vice Chair or Chair to sign the credit application?
I move for the Vice Chair to be able to sign the credit application.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
Yes, Vice Chair. I just wanted to, just for a point of clarification, we just cleared up. We're able to do this because we're still in the meeting.
That's correct.
Because I know one of the things that once it came up, about the adding or subtracting or signing stuff before it was voted on.
That's correct.
I just want to let everybody know that we're still in the meeting session. That's why we were able to still add this to and be able to vote on it.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. We're going to do this by a vote of raising hands. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, now we're going to go back into recess, and then we're going to open up in the Planning, Zoning, and Board of Commissioners joint meeting.
Good evening, and welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of May 7th, 2024. I am Briggs Simmons, the Planning and Zoning Chair. Prior to this meeting, announcements were posted and notices were sent to all board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in the meeting. I will now turn the meeting over to Mark Alvarez, our Vice Chair of Commission, to introduce and confirm the presence of the commissioners.
We're going to do roll call for the meeting. District 1 Commissioner Ricky Dobbs.
Present.
District 2 Commissioner Mrs. Kenner Jones.
Present.
And Vice Chair Mark Alvarez is present.
Thank you, sir. Also present, we have members of the Planning and Zoning Board. If you would confirm your presence when I call your name. Rob Thomas, our Vice Chair.
Present.
Teresa Knowles.
Present.
Frank Payne.
Present.
Kirk Nicholson.
Present.
And Oric Curry and Brandon Penniman are excused from tonight's meeting. We do have a quorum. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff and Planning and Zoning staff present in the meeting. Ms. Duncan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Stewart Stanley. We have our County Attorney, Michael Coleman. We have James Worthington, our Managing Director of Development Services. We have Suleiman Rana, our Managing Director of Transportation. We have Phil Schaefer, our Zoning Administrator. Austin Cronin, our Planner. Kim Waters, our Department Secretary. And Johanna Womack, the Clerk of the Planning and Zoning Board. As always, we would like to thank our Communications Department, and we would like to thank our Sheriff's deputies for being here and providing services for us tonight also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. There's a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or the property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners have granted an approval. As far as tonight's procedure goes, I will conduct each public hearing. Planning and zoning staff will announce each application, followed by a full presentation of the application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of an application will be able to present their information. They will have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of an application. Members of the public in opposition to an application will be able to present their information. They will also have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to make their presentations. After the opposition completes their input or the time has elapsed, the public hearing will be officially closed. At this point, the staff will clarify any points of the zoning case. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, the board will then ask the applicant for points of clarification. And this is not a time for the applicant to represent their case. Planning and Zoning Board will then entertain a motion. Our first agenda item tonight is the approval of the minutes of our April 9th, 2024 meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, you've had those minutes. Do we have any changes or discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 9th, 2024 meeting?
This is Frank Payne. I make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 9th, 2024 meeting.
Mr. Chair, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of April 9th, 2024, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Vice Chairman, the minutes of April 9th, 2024 come to you with a recommendation for approval.
Board of Commissioners, you have heard the Planning and Zoning Board bring to us the recommendation for approval of the minutes of April 9th, 2024 meeting. May I get is there any additions or subtractions or changes that need to be made to those minutes? If not, may I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 9th, 2024 meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes from the April 9th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. At this point in time, our next agenda item, Mr. Schaefer, please.
So our next agenda item is, needs to be taken off the
We
table.
have to untable that agenda item. Planning and Zoning Board would ask for a motion to untable M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 that was tabled on March the 5th, 2024.
Chairman, it's Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a motion to untable M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 from the
I have a motion.
April
Do I have a
meeting.
second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Do we need any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor of removing these items from the table, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Vice Chair, M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 come to you with a recommendation to untable.
Board of Commissioners, you heard the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board. May I get a motion to untable M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 that was tabled from our March meeting?
I move to untable agenda item M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 that was tabled at the March 5th meeting.
May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, or any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? Motion carries, Chairman, unanimously.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Now, Mr. Schaefer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, so this evening we have Anna Maria Means requested a rezoning, a future land use map amendment, rezoning, and a special use permit. These are for rezoning from urban residential to commercial center in the future land use map, rezoning from residential agricultural, PSP, public, semi-public, and light industrial restrictions to LI industrial for the zoning district, for data center warehouses, and a special use permit for an electrical substation located Echo Road and Rock House Roads in Land Lot 175, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 29, together with Land Lots 947, 948, 991, and 992, District 18, Section 2. The lot size is approximately 118 acres. Project here Subject property is at the confluence of Echo Road and Rock House Roads on the west side of Rock House and on the north of Echo Road. It's bounded on the west by the Sweetwater Creek Park, one property removed, and on the south by additional industrial development. To the north, it's bounded by a residential subdivision, and on the east side of Rock House Road, another residential subdivision has been developed. The site itself is densely wooded, highly topographic, has several streams running through it with significant challenges to develop. The applicant's proposing a mix of 4 data warehouse structures with approximately 1,465,000 square feet of total area. The buildings will comprise 380,000 square feet each over 4 buildings. The actual substation for the electrical service, which is the special use permit component of this, 336,000 square foot substation. All the buildings would be served by primary access to the existing Rock House Road right-of-way on the secondary entry via Echo Road. Staff held community meetings for this project January 11th. Approximately 15 neighbors came to that meeting. Subdivision attended and raised issues and concerns regarding the proposal. Principal concerns focused on traffic and potential for cars and trucks to use Rock House Road, Factory Shoals, access as well by traveling through their segment of Rock House. They were concerned that the truck traffic that might get generated, the vehicle traffic would come up through the subdivision. It's just a 2-lane street. Other concerns regarding water pressure issues, drainage patterns and flooding, visibility of the property from the neighbors, air pollution and noise pollution impacting quality of life for the neighbors. Most importantly to the residents was the potential loss of their quality of life and the value of their homes. The scale of the proposal exceeded the threshold of 500,000 square feet for industrial developments, and so it had to go through a development of regional impact with the Atlanta Regional Commission, as well as the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority. That project was submitted under documentation for DRI number 4078. The project was reviewed according to the requirements of ARC and GERDA and the standards, and the final report was issued for the project January 19th, 2024. The issuance of that report would then allow the county to proceed with the rezoning hearings. And here is a zoning map to show you the surrounding properties. As you can see, in green is the PUD. That's this residential subdivision. There is a component to that residential subdivision that was never built to the far left of the picture. It's just green right now with lines through it. As you can see, no roads are in it. So that is still has a preliminary plat for a number of lots that could be built eventually. The RA, as you see in yellow, that is the site itself. To you see east, you can see across the street directly is, again, more residential subdivision, then light industrial to the east of that, and then south, again, light industrial with conditions, which has some of which has been developed, some of which has not. In the southwest corner, of course, we have a historic neighborhood off of Summer Lake Road. That's a historic residential area, so we've always tried to protect that. There is a buffer requirement for this developer to maintain setbacks away from that property line. This is the aerial photograph to show you the site itself with the topography a little bit behind the scenes and some of the lots that you can see having been aggregated. The properties to the west of the red line there, those are the buffers between the property and the state park. To the west in the white under aerial image, that would be the state park. This is to show you some of the planning comments. The proposal falls within the data district character area, which was adopted under our recent comprehensive plan update in 2023. The future land use map already depicts a portion of the property as within the Commerce Center, but a portion of the property is not within the Commerce Center yet. So we would need to have the future land use map amended before you could act on the rezoning itself. As far as planning comments, this does occur within the Southwest Thornton Activity Center, which was a study done in 2017 by the city and the county together. They studied this eastern part of the county and came up with a set of very, very strict architectural requirements, elevated architectural requirements, so that we could call this the Quality Growth Overlay District. And that was applied to a number of areas of the county, so that whatever gets built out here has to comply with a little bit elevated architectural and landscaping requirements. The part that's in yellow there is, in fact, what was designated as residential. The original plan called for a residential ring around the state park. A couple of years back, when some of the industrial projects came to us for rezoning in that part of the county, The park manager had told us that they don't prefer the residences up against the park as it represents a potential for trespass. They prefer the industrial. I don't know what the current policy is for the state park system, but that was what we were told back then, which led to some of the industrial rezonings that occurred. In terms of the study that we did, I did a rooftop study some couple of years ago on industrial square footage that had been approved. It's a little small, but what you can see here, the combined totals for this node in the county represent 11 to 12 million square feet of industrial activity, and when combined with the city in total, we're looking at about 14 to 16 million square feet of industrial in the eastern area of the county. That includes the Riverside Corridor and the Thornton Corridor if you start putting the rooftops together. The site plan that they've submitted to us, and this is what was reviewed by all parties, the DRI, the GERDA, as well as staff for the DOT and WSA and zoning and engineering, shows 4 buildings with access to Rock House Road. This, tried to make it a little larger, though it didn't do a good job. The hatching there at the bottom left next to the building is representative of where the substation will go. So I know we've had some comments about what is a substation going to look like. I have example photo of it, but it's going to be well back in the woods, so it's away from most of the residences up on Rock House Road. Difficult to see. The power line corridor, however, is a different matter. That does, if you look at Rock House Road right-of-way, between their proposed entrance and going to the right, it's those multiple lines on the plat there. Those multiple lines represent the power line easement that runs through the property now. Staff has reviewed the criteria for the future land use map request, finds that the criteria are met, especially by the revised comprehensive plan update from last year, as well as the zoning criteria. Staff has reviewed it against the zoning criteria, finds that it is supported by those various criteria. And staff's reviewed the special use permit for the substation and has found that the criteria are in support of that use as well. Staff is recommending approval of the future land use map amendment from urban residential to commerce center with the following finding: that A, the character of this area has been evolving towards higher intensity of industrial and commercial development, and B, the proposed commerce center character area at this location is generally consistent with the intent of the comprehensive future land use plan to ensure compatible and unified development within specified areas of the county. As far as staff is also recommending approval of the rezoning from RA and PSP and LIR to light industrial, with findings of A, the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan categorization of this property as within the Commerce Center area, incorporating varying mixed commercial and industrial uses. That the permissible uses, C, the uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with the surrounding properties. And D, the character of this area has been evolving towards denser industrial development for several years. Conditions for the rezoning. Number 1, the scope of the project is authorized for up to 1,465,000 square feet of light industrial use as approved by ARC-GERDA under DRI 4087. Any increase in the required square footage, in the requested square footage, may require additional review under the DRI procedure. Number 2, the applicant shall be required to connect to the public sewer system for this development with design criteria and specifics to be reviewed for compliance by the Douglas County, Douglasville Water Sewer Authority. The applicant shall submit, number 3, to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in this staff report dated February 6, 2024. Number 4, to provide a 10-foot wide concrete multi-use trail along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road. Trail shall be constructed to GDOT standards for the program trail, and the trail should be located 4 foot behind the curb and shall be contained within the existing or proposed right-of-way with 5 feet of right-of-way offset behind the curb for maintenance purposes. Number 5, provide curb and gutter and underground drainage along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road with a southbound deceleration lane constructed to Douglas County standards for the proposed driveway access to Rock House Road and to Echo Road. Number 6, per the UDC code, Rock House Road shall be improved to a paved roadway with a curb, gutter, underground drainage, and sidewalk along both sides of the roadway per county specs. Number 7, a cul-de-sac shall be constructed per county standards at the end of Echo Road. 8, provide streetlights along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road. 9, all requirements of the UDC code shall apply to this development and will be further defined upon plan submittal. That will be to the DRC. Number 10, and this is the critical one, the Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority understands that the use of this site project is being considered in conjunction with one or more additional sites. The proposed use of water and wastewater resources exceeds the community's long-term plans for water resources and would impact the ability to serve other planned future uses. If the projects receive the local governing authority approval, the authority proposes the development of certain public water and sewer infrastructure improvements necessary for this project, which must be installed at the developers will contribute to such installation per an executed development agreement to support the projects. The infrastructure improvements will be installed per the authority's applicable construction standards and requirements following execution of any required development agreements. Applicant acknowledges that this is in discussion with the authority to finalize a memorandum of understanding, MOU, regarding water usage at the project and surrounding projects. An applicant agrees to abide by the terms of an executed development agreement between the applicant and the authority as contemplated by the MOU. And staff is also recommending approval of special use permit S202408 with the following findings. Use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Development Code. Granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And here we just have a couple of conditions for the substation. Number 1, any other use of the property not identified within Section 210, uses allowed in each zoning district, specifically tables 2.2 and 2.3, uses allowed by right of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, may require the submission, review, and approval of a new special use permit. Number 2, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee, DRC, for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development concerns in the UDC and the requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report, so that we can capture the substation in the DRC as well as the overall zoning project in the DRC. And then there's a directive to staff, of course, to go out at the annual inspection and make sure the special use permit was done. We did receive one update from the applicant, which shows more appropriate color scheme for the elevations. They had 3 different submittals here, which all fall into the same kind of earth tone category that when we saw the other projects up on Factory Shoals and Douglas Hill, this is the kind of elevated architecture that we were asking of them. So this makes this more of a campus atmosphere that they'll start to look similar in nature to what we've already approved. So I just wanted to make sure we got that elevation in front of you, just to let you know this is kind of what we would expect them to build. And then here is just an example of the substation. I'm not quite sure if this is the exact square footage of what they're proposing, and then the incoming and outbound power line poles that would serve it. And with that, the original slides that Amazon had asked, or AWS had asked me to place in them for their presentation are to follow. With that, I can conclude my presentation, Mr. Chairman. And
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Yes, Ms. Duncan.
Sorry, apologies, but just as a footnote to the presentation that Mr. Schaefer has given, Planning and Zoning staff wants to make sure that we're transparent about the flurry of emails that has come through in the last 24 hours about a potential change in the site plan. All of those emails are public record and will be entered into the public record. Those emails will show that Planning and Zoning staff repeatedly did not support any last-minute changes, but we do want to acknowledge that in case there are questions from the Planning and Zoning Board and the Board of Commissioners or the public about everything that had transpired in the last 24 hours. So again, we just want to make sure that that is on record as a part of our staff report, and those will all be in the record for the meeting. We will let the applicant, present what they would like to share with you here this evening in terms of what their presentation is. But for the sake of complete transparency, we want to make it clear on the record that those emails are a part of this record, and we're happy to speak to them as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. The Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. We have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would, first thing, state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Anna Maria Means, 303 Peachtree Street, Suite 5300, Atlanta, Georgia, 30308. Thank you so much, Phil, for presenting the application. We are here before you as we were at the March meeting. With this application, we accept the conditions of the staff report. We heard the neighborhood concerns, and we're certainly amenable to any conditions to address their concerns. And we will continue to work with the neighborhood between this meeting and our design and site review meeting to discuss with them the site plan and work with them going forward. And we just respectfully request approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maines. And you did say you agreed with the conditions that were read in by Mr. Schaefer.
Correct, we do.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. State your name and address, and then you have 2 minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ashu Rao, 1971 Rock House Road. I own the property directly adjacent to the proposed development. I'm a local physician who's had the privilege and pleasure of serving patients in this community for over 20 years. And I've seen a lot of changes along Factory Shoals and Rock House Road, and I've learned you can't stop progress. Everybody in this room probably has one of these, and we watch videos of grandbabies, and we send jokes to friends, and we communicate with coworkers, and that's all done in the background in data centers. So I would humbly propose we're not here to stop data centers from being built, but simply to say, where should we put data centers? And I think that's not in the Dog River Basin or next to Arbor Place Mall or downtown Douglasville. I think data centers should be built, and they should be built in this area where all the other data centers are in the data district overlay and where other industry is. And I'd also like to remind everybody, data centers are not like other development. Regular industrial has a bunch of truck traffic going in and out. Data centers don't need a lot of truck traffic going in and out. Dense subdivisions stress the school system, and they also add traffic. Data centers do pay taxes, however, and that will decrease the burden on working families for property taxes to go up if data centers are paying taxes. So in summary, I'm supporting, as a neighbor, I'm supporting the development, but I would like to take a few seconds remaining to thank the commissioners and the planning and zoning staff for the endless time and effort you put into keeping Douglas County growing and vibrant, but managing that growth in a logical manner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record and then have 2 minutes, please.
Jatana Newcomb Osborne, Parkside Community in Lithia Springs. Our ancestors and forefathers paved the way for individuals who share our likeness to attain positions that enable them to create a better environment, assume responsibility, and guide our communities towards a beautiful, secure, and prosperous future. With my background in sales and business development, I feel like this has been a minimal business development charge from the leaders in our community, resulting in the establishment of liquor stores, dollar stores, fast food outlets, and car washes. Additionally, warehouses and the potential construction of 4 data centers, along with 3 to 4 buildings and an electric substation that poses a safety hazard, have been proposed. This is unsafe from the emissions, possible fire hazards without a fire station near us, the volume of water usage, and power consumption on an old grid. This situation has persisted for more than 9 months, and regardless of differing opinions, we are fatigued. The burden of opposing these developments has been ignored for far too long. We do not desire any more concrete structures or hazardous developments near our residences. We have been warned that we must choose between warehouses or data centers, and if we do not comply, the land would be annexed into Douglasville, leaving us voiceless. Our primary concern and our voice are being overshadowed by financial interests. Furthermore, the developments that have been imposed in our community have not resulted in any investment back in Lithia Springs. Public record shows that the businesses have not held up to their promises per the contract. Following the recent revelations we learned of last evening, we believe that the community has not been given sufficient time to assess the changes and make an informed decision based on our requirements. Given the short notice, therefore, we are urging for the decision to be postponed once again until we can convene as a community meeting to reach a well-thought-out conclusion. These decisions so far have increased our insurance and have destroyed our roads. And supporting my neighbor, they have a 10-year tax break, just in case you didn't know.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If you'd state your name and address for the record in 2 minutes.
Okay. Richard Williams, Parkside Village, Lithia Springs. I want to start off by saying, no, it's not bad to have the data centers in Douglas County. Having them next to your home is the issue that we're speaking of. I also would like to call out the fact that the images that are up on the screen right now are images that I sent in so that we really can see a true view of what we're talking about putting next to a subdivision of 250 homes. So, no to more warehouses and no to AWS being built next to my house. Living in an industrial park, technology park, is not the dream I purchased into when moving to Douglas County. From the beginning of this, AWS has moved under the pretense of partnering with the community. But how do you move forward with a partner that's not truthful? Per the last meeting here, it was stated if they did not receive a ruling that day, they had to move on. Yet here we are. Communication with the community has been terrible, lacking a reasonable turnaround time for the community to assemble and respond. Lithia Springs, and especially Zone 2, is given liquor stores, warehouses, and data centers. How is this elevating Douglas County? Or are Douglas residents the only ones that are meant to benefit off of the economic development that has our homes and families boxed in on all sides by cross-dock warehouses and 2 data centers, with the 3rd being proposed to be built next to us? Per the last few meetings I watched as the presentations from our Douglas County zoning team paints a very skewed presentation of how massive this project is and how it will dramatically affect over 250 single-family homes. I forwarded over the images that we see now to show one of the current substations we have to pass daily to get to our homes. And keep in mind, there's another data center being built right next to that one, as well as this proposed one. So that will be 3 structures looking like this as you're going in and out of your home.
Okay. 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? You'd state your name and address for the record.
Valina Davis. I am the Parkside Manor resident. All right. So first off, thank you all just for hearing us again. I see some faces, and I appreciate the time that you guys are taking, and I hope you guys are all taking it serious, because I would hope that you would imagine if this was your home and there was a station that was placed in the backyard of your home. How would you feel, first and foremost? And hello to my neighbor, whom I've never ever seen in my life, not even at the traffic light or Walmart or anywhere, but hello, neighbor. With that being said, I stood here the last time, and I said the quality of life was very important to me. Not only to me, but all of our neighbors. We deserve the same quality that each and every one of you guys sitting here. I will maintain that. It is unfortunate that a lot of decisions were made while we were in the house during COVID. So for someone to sit here and say that this is an area that is designed to be a data district or whatever it was labeled as, these were decisions that were made without the neighborhood's input. Our last representative, I wish we would have had more input. With the yellow signs that are being put up, oftentimes they weren't necessarily visible. This last time around, I saw them, and this is why I'm here. So I just want to make sure that the record shows that not only Is AWS here now? Like I said previously, an Amazon warehouse is down the street. So if they were a partner before, or if they're trying to be a partner now, they should have been a partner the whole time. Like our school system, our school, which is up the street, they're still not a partner. They still haven't reached out. The only company that I can tell you right off the top of my head in the 10 years that I've lived in this community that has reached out to our community was, I think it was Keurig or whatever it starts with a K. No other company in the neighborhood has reached out. We have not benefited from anybody being in here, yet we continue to be, to face the burdens of everybody else in Douglas County. I think it's unfair, and I would appreciate if we actually reap the benefits of all of these things that are coming in our community, and stop taking on the criticism and everything else that is coming with all of these extra businesses. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If you'd state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes, sir.
How everybody doing today? My name is Robert Davis, 971 Rock Hill Parkway, Lithia Springs, Georgia. This is tiring. It's very tiring and draining. Get up this morning, I look outside, I got wild animals running in my yard because of the data center that's already getting built. I can't get out the yard because there's always construction crew holding traffic, making everybody late. Buses are being late for kids. I've never seen this gentleman. I've never seen him. He may live there. I don't know if he has 3 or 4 homes, but it's not speaking for everybody. We don't want it. We have enough. I want to live in my community without having trucks, tractor trailers driving down the street. I have broken roads. It's a lie. They're already changing the format. We can't even get clear data of what it's going to look like. We don't even have enough time to make a decision. I'm tired of the sleight of hand. I expect to be represented by you guys for some type of protection. Like they've done project after project after project, and the county's collecting money, but we haven't seen it, and now they want to change your tax break. It's not fair. We end up fronting the cost. That's all I have to say. Like, just do something. We don't want it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? How's our time? Plenty of time. You state your name and address, and then 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Melody Wilcox Pratt. I live at 2280 Pine Drive in Douglasville, Georgia. And my question for all of you tonight is, when are the citizens of Douglas County actually going to be heard? For years, many of us have been complaining about the wrong kind of growth coming to Douglas County. This is an entire neighborhood that does not want this. So do we sacrifice that entire neighborhood and take the chance of these folks all leaving Douglas County because they don't want to be in a county that continues to have this kind of growth so that we can put in another data center or another warehouse? I just encourage you, and I know that we've had a lot of talk from a lot of folks about the wrong kind of growth and not wanting it in our county anymore. And I see some of you up here who've talked about that. So I strongly encourage you, start listening to the people who this is affecting. And in this case, it's this community, but it's coming to a community near you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one else moving, I will close the public hearing in this matter. At this point in time, Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Chairman, I have a couple questions for, I don't know where to start. Let's start with, we talked about the taxes a lot, so I want to kind of, I know we have a special guest here, so I'd like to kind of talk to the taxes and the revenue side of it first. Mr. Chris Pumphrey, he's with the economic development. Thank you for coming. And as you heard, we had this meeting in March. It was tabled. Some of the questions we couldn't answer. Well, they didn't have a representative either at the time. And then some of the questions pertaining to the revenue or lack of clarification on the impact of that, of the revenue, of the taxes with this data center.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
If you state your name and address for the record first.
Will do. Chris Pumphrey, Elevate Douglas Economic Partnership, 8512 Bowden Street, Douglasville. Yes, so this, for this project, as was mentioned, there are investments being made across multiple properties here in Douglasville and Douglas County. This particular property on Rock House Road is being one of those investments. It represents an investment in the range of $3 to $4 billion in real and personal property, and jobs in the range of 75 to 100 jobs with an average salary of $100,000 a year. With that, we run kind of an analysis on what that looks like from a tax impact standpoint. We measured this investment kind of over a 15-year period. Over a 15-year period, it ends up being somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 million that is coming in property taxes to the county and schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, currently there's property there, there's a bunch of different, you're getting revenue up the property tax now. I guess what's the difference?
I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to venture to say it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60,000, maybe, just based off the amount of acreage that's there. But I don't have a.
But nothing near to what this would
sir.
bring. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Yeah. So tax breaks. I mean, I don't know if we could you mention. Can you talk about that any? Because people are saying, hey, they're not going to be paying them.
That is inclusive of a potential tax break.
Okay, that's over a 15-year period.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I know you work with the city and the county.
Mm-hmm.
Is this commensurate to what you see with the city as well, as far as?
Yeah. So the total investment, as I mentioned, is made across 5 different properties. One of those being in the city of Douglasville. The other 4 being in unincorporated Douglas.
Okay. Okay. So partly. So when you have this issue with the city, similarly types of issues pertaining to the revenue. Are they getting some similar treatment with this particular project as the others with the city, or is there any difference?
Yeah, for the particular property, it's going into an existing facility that is already in a zoned property. And I don't have the exact figures on that, but it's, I'm going to say roughly $1 billion to $1.5 billion in total investment.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. While you're up, and see if anyone else may have any questions for you.
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Other question I did have was with the water. I guess staff probably need to address the water issue.
WSA is here too.
Mm-hmm.
WSA is here also.
Oh,
Yes.
WSA is
Yeah,
here?
Mr. Shearhouse is here from the Water Sewer Authority, so he can address the
I didn't
issue
see it back
directly.
there. State your name and address.
Gil Strauss, Water and Sewer Authority, 8763 Hospital Drive, right across the street.
Great, thank you. We're here again. I know last we had this similar discussion. So the memorandum of understanding has not been codified yet, hasn't been signed yet.
So since the last meeting and this one, it has all been negotiated. It hasn't been signed yet because we're literally working through that right now, but it has been, everything's been agreed to, and we're just working through the execution process.
Okay. Can you speak to the residents as far as pertaining to the water usage? I think it's going to be a water tower proposal.
So actually several things to share there first, and not to sugarcoat this project at all. This is a big project from a water standpoint. They would require resources that we haven't planned for. So we've been working with this applicant on additional resources that would be required that come in from outside of our county or from outside of our current potable water system. So what the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, basically does is sets up an arrangement whereby we can serve them temporarily on the potable system, and they'll do some improvements in our system to make sure that the residents in the area and businesses don't see any limitation or issues with the water system. We'll participate in some of those because some are needed just by the nature of growing businesses and things like that. So there will be a series of additional water tanks that will go in that will help balance pressure in the area. I understand there's been some concerns with pressure in the area, so some of those improvements will help that. Again, short term, some improvements there. Long term, for this to work, we cannot serve them on our potable water system. So many of you know we're building a reservoir. We're doing a big expansion on that. We have not planned for a user like this on that system. So we'll be pulling in other resources to provide the long-term needs of this project so that not only does it not impact negatively the residents in the area, but we don't want to see an impact to the residents of Douglas County and the businesses of Douglas County today or long-term. And a project like this could drastically impact both the water system and the rates of the water system if we don't handle it in the way that we are handling. So we're making sure that we're providing for the water resources in an appropriate way, but also so that the customers of today aren't going to pay additional money for us to serve a customer like this. That should be borne by the customer that's needing those resources. So all that's contemplated in the memorandum of understanding. They have worked well with us, and it's the current applicant and the other data centers that Mr. Pumphrey talked about and staff talked about, so that it's actually a four-way memorandum of understanding, which if you can imagine trying to negotiate a four-way agreement like that has been, it's been interesting. But they've been good to work with. They understand the situation and have been willing to bring in the resources needed to make sure that we're providing the water for them, but also not negatively impacting our community.
The other three partners with this, are they in the city, county, do you know, or both?
I'm going to defer to either Chris or staff. I believe some are in the county and one's in the city. I believe that's the site that Mr. Pumphrey just mentioned about having already been in the city. But for us, it's water for
Doesn't
all
matter.
of the
Okay,
projects.
right.
Correct.
Can you kind of quantify this for us? I know you got all four, but can you just separate this one to say how many residential houses would that consist of on average? Just say.
I don't know that number offhand, and candidly, we're under a non-disclosure agreement. Quantity is something that's privileged and confidential. I can't share that number, but I will speak to it this way. The reservoir project that we're undertaking, we've planned a 50-year planning horizon for that. So we're going to serve the needs of our community for 50 years. If these projects, all of them together, came on our system, it's an 11-year project for us. That's the significance of it. So take that.
So the 50-year becomes 11 years.
50-year becomes 11 years, correct.
Wow, okay.
So how many houses this would take, I could do that math for you and get that to you.
Yeah, well,
offline.
that kind of
it's
says
significant
something right there.
It's
So
significant.
it sounds pretty significant.
But again, we
but
have
it's
the
all
resources.
four, not just this one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. Anyone else have anything from him? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Chairman, right now.
Any other questions or comments by the board?
Yeah, I have a comment with the, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. My major concern is that on the last time that you were here, you talked about working with the community as well as the school systems and some type of training and development there. What has been done, or what are your plans in dealing with that situation?
So the impetus for all of that would be being able to build the development. So I can have someone from the AWS team come speak to what will be done. At the moment, we have not done anything because we're waiting for this process to be completed, but I'll have someone speak to what will be done.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Carrillo. I am the Community Engagement Manager for AWS, address 1218 Boring Avenue in Seattle, Washington. And to answer your question, normally we start working with the community inclusive of the school district when we are ready to go. We have the permits and everything is ready. And there are plans for all the infrastructure that we build everywhere we go to precisely invest in the needs of the community, starting with training, with skill development, to make sure that we have a pipeline of candidates and then future workers that not only work for AWS, but any tech company that they want to. So this is one of the investments that we're doing in all the communities that we want to be the best neighbors possible, but we need to have permits first to start the project and then start working together with the community, with the school districts, on what's important for these communities, what it matters to them, and not making just assumptions, right? So it's very tailored, and we pay attention to what the community is needing and asking us for.
Can you give me some examples of what you've done in the past?
For sure. We have several pre-made programs. We talked briefly last time about one of them, Think Big Space. It's kind of a tech lab that we built in conjunction with the school districts and schools. We provide all the equipment, all the tech, 3D printing, the 3D goggles, like all the infrastructure that the kids need to have hands-on experience in tech, to teach them also how to code and to prepare them for the future, maybe even to tap into these interests that they might not even know or knew that it existed before. And through this program worldwide, we have benefited more than 70,000 students, K-12, and then we also have the skill development programs that I mentioned that have also trained tens of thousands of future tech workers. And that's just one. We also have others that focus on girls. It's called Girl Tech series, and we emphasize in trying to bridge the gender gap in tech. So we have workshops and classes, and we have also mobile classrooms that we take to different areas where we serve. And through this program, we have also helped a lot of girls to be more knowledgeable about tech so they can, if they want, explore careers here. And this is just tech related, but we also pay a lot of attention to infrastructure when it comes to sustainability and community programs. So I personally work with the community trying to understand what their needs are and then build those projects and programs around their specific needs that go from conservancy of water, electricity, solar panels, to investment in small businesses to try to develop communities with special attention to underserved communities as well. So this is just a broad idea of what we do from a community standpoint, but again, we need to have the permits and ready to go so we can start working.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, planning and zoning?
I have one more question. I'm not sure, it's for the applicant. Someone as opposed brought up that some last minute changes or last minute meeting or email went out. Can you address that?
Sure. The March meeting, we heard from the residents, we heard from you all about concerns. And so we sort of went to our engineering team, our design team, to try to figure out how to address them. Some of those were reflected in those elevation changes that you saw. There were other suggestions that the neighborhood made, buffers, reducing the square footage, changing the entrance. And so those are things that we looked at. We heard there are concerns from planning staff about amending our application at a late date. These projects take a lot of engineering to kind of figure out. And so by the time we, kind of looked at, okay, well, what can we do? It was a little late to amend our application. So we didn't want to amend the application. The request to rezone the land is the same. The application did include a site plan, but none of the conditions proffered by staff are site-specific conditions. So we're here today. We're happy to meet all the conditions that staff recommended. If Planning Commission or Planning Board want to talk about other conditions, we're happy to talk about those. Like I said, we were sort of internally working through what is possible. There is a design review committee where we kind of get granular on the site plan and determine exactly what the site is going to look like. And we're committed to work with the county and the neighbors between now and that point to make sure that everyone is clear on what's happening on the site and is comfortable with what's happening on the site. So that email reflected a little bit of that. But as we stand before you today, we are not requesting any amendments to our application.
Okay, thank you. But I'm sure you understand the suspicion that being brought up when they said you just sent it to them recently, so.
Yeah,
kinda-
I mean, it
kinda
wasn't.
feeds into what they're saying, you know, sleight of hand and things like that going on, changing 3-car Molly going on here. So, hey, I'm just saying, they brought it up, you
Yeah.
brought up that you did make the change and it just happened. So you gotta understand the suspicion that they have.
Yeah, the sleight of hand was certainly not our intention. Like I said, we had roughly 6 weeks to work through changes. We weren't able to do that quick enough to amend our application, so we're not going to amend our application. We wanted the community to understand there are some possibilities that between now and that DRC meeting, we're willing to talk through with them. And as soon as I received it, as soon as we were able to, we didn't want to talk to the neighborhood about something that we couldn't do, right? I'm just an attorney, I'm not an engineer, so we had to get the engineers and the site development people to figure out what is possible. And once we figured out, okay, these things are possible, then we were able to communicate that there are things that are possible. But again, we're not in a position to be able to amend our application at the moment.
Okay, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And you still want to move forward, even though there are some changes that possibly could make this look better?
Correct, because we believe that because there are no conditions on a site plan, we believe that we have that flexibility to do so within the constraints of the zoning conditions, and we're happy to
This is
stick
more
with some.
structural changes, entrance changes, but not, as far, you say nothing really going to impact the conditions that
Correct.
that were read in by staff?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll throw it over to the commissioners for questions you folks may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Oh, I have lots.
Okay, all right.
You can go
All right.
first.
Go ahead, Commissioner Dobbs.
I just have a couple. Mr. Pumphrey, if you could come up for me, please. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Thank you for coming up. Question I have for you, it was stated for this property it would yield over 15 years, I think you said about 250 million. And that's just for this site?
Correct.
Okay, and there's 4 for the county, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then 1 for the city?
Yes, sir.
So for the 4 for the county, can you, at the end, can you give one, maybe like a projected timeline on how you would like to build those properties, and then the yield that all 4 would provide for the county over the next 15 years?
Sure, sure. So a little bit about it. So there's one existing building and 2 other buildings that are under construction owned by another entity that investments will be made in by AWS. In addition to that, there are 2 other sites on Factory Shoals Road that are in the development process that will also have investments made from this project. And so with that, that's the total of the 5 properties, including plus this one here. So over a 15-year period, the number just for the county, so the number I gave you before was county and schools. So I'm just going to do just county. That number sits in the neighborhood of 300 million. Just for the county. For the city of Douglasville, as I mentioned, there's only 1 building. What we are showing is roughly 15 million, and then for the schools, it's 488 million.
Okay, so for Douglas County as a whole, that's somewhere close to about 800.
Yeah, roughly 800 million and almost 300 jobs at $100,000 average salary.
Okay, let's see. From the economic side, and that's including the tax break also,
Correct.
right?
That is correct.
'Cause there's I assume there is somewhat of a tax break just for getting them to come in. But over that still and after that 15-year period, I assume the tax break, is it consistent with the 10 years like any other thing?
No, so the way it works, it escalates over the year, so it's increasing as it gets to when I say increasing, maybe I would say the benefit decreases over the years, probably the best way to say it. So over the years, the benefit decreases, and so you're kind of getting closer and closer to what full taxability will look like.
Okay, and so that means after the 15 years, we would start yielding more?
Correct.
Okay, so of course of probably 30 years, we would say that could double, could be 600, maybe 1,600.
Yeah, I'm not a futurist, but you know, how properties and all that stuff works. Yeah, it's definitely going to increase. Property values, especially on the real estate side, tend to increase.
Okay, all right. I thank you for that. I believe the next one may be for the applicant that I have as far as or maybe even staff, I'm sorry, based off of the structure and what we presented. Thinking about that substation. So that substation, the one where you have the whole property?
Yep.
Because I know one of the concerns, from what I hear, based off of the neighborhood, and I heard you say it has to be a standoff. So the substation that's there, that shouldn't really have much impact, or maybe even be visible from any.
It may not be visible. It's kind of a bowl. As you go back to the west, the topography drops off pretty radically, and the substations, the tower components holding the wires, et cetera, will be sort of buried back there in that hole between the two buildings as you see it there. Rock House Road itself is quite a bit higher. There's probably 100 feet of elevation between the two. So Rock House is above, and then it goes up along the west edge of Rock House where there's a ridge, and that ridge line drops off and then rises up again and drops back off towards the rear. So this is really a component that's back in the back. You won't see it from Summer Lake because there'll still be the woods between Summer Lake and the building, and then the building is between the Summer Lake folks and the actual substation.
Okay, I just wanted to know about that for that.
Okay.
And then my final question is for WSA.
Good evening again.
And, I just wanted to talk about, based off of what you said, as far as what you're working with the four-way MOU. What you're trying to do is you're mitigating the risk that is to any businesses or residents. So is that safe to say, based off of what you said, that you are all working towards a solution that doesn't impact the surrounding residents?
I would say that's exactly what we're aiming for, so that if they're approved, we've figured out a solution that, from the water standpoint, we can serve them that doesn't adversely impact. And we should see some improvements in the area. That's the goal.
Okay, all right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you. Vice Chair, are you?
Commissioner Kenner-Jones?
Yes. So my first question, I guess, is for planning and zoning staff. The rezoning is for light industrial. After talking with several of the residents, they want some assurances. Obviously, light industrial includes data centers, but what other entities could possibly be in that, because they are concerned that they will get this data center approved, which would not necessarily be an altogether terrible neighbor, but that there may be other terrible neighbors that come attached to that.
So the code in Article 2 in the table of uses does allow numerous other uses in the LI, obviously, one of which is data centers, the other is warehouses, amongst all kinds of other manufacturing operations as well. And if you look at what we have in terms of industrial mix that Chris has been able to gather together for the various buildings in the Thornton area, if you look at all of those different mixes of uses, some of them are manufacturing, some of them are warehouses, some of them are contractors' offices, some of them are contractors' yards. A mix of industrial uses could be possible here. So if this applicant were to receive rezoning approval and they decided not to move forward, you're correct. It could be sold to someone else and some other project would be able to come through. My caveat to that is, of course, any project would have to go through development review. So no matter what they propose, even if it's a use by right, we still would see them in development review committee, and the conditions that I read to you would still be in place for the zoning district. So that's the important piece. If you feel you need more conditions in the rezoning component, then of course you have the ability to add conditions to the rezoning component, and that would be enforced for any purchaser of the land going forward. Yeah, and also just to remind everybody, we changed the rules last year for warehouses, so that any structure in the industrial that's over 50,000 square feet would require a special use permit. So we come to the conclusion that large buildings are not really where we want to head in the future. So you have the ability to see any project over 50,000 square feet as a special use permit, regardless of whether the zoning is in place. So there are a lot of uses by right that would still have to come before you for a special use permit to get started.
My next question is for Water and Sewer Authority.
Good evening again.
Good evening. So you mentioned that they are, that the AWS is taking on the improvement cost to ensure that they can run appropriate water, that they can cool these data centers. Several of the residents previously had complained that they do have water pressure issues. You mentioned that balance tanks would be put in. Who's paying for those?
So those would be a hybrid of some funding from AWS, some from us. We have in our mid-range plan a tank for that area. We didn't feel like it was needed from our models. This would definitely require it, so they're paying basically part of that so that we can accelerate that project. But we will provide some of that because we were going to do it anyway at some point.
And that's from your existing budget, not as a charge back to residents?
Correct. That's correct, yeah.
And you mentioned that there was going to be a four-way MOU for who controls what. As an attorney, I know, I'm sure that AWS's attorneys had this experience, but that leaves a lot of confusion for who is actually responsible for what when something goes wrong. So who is taking ownership of these things?
It's actually very clear, and as an attorney, I appreciate your input there, and there have been many attorneys involved in this process. So essentially, AWS backstops everything in the four-way MOU. They're one of the four, but then they backstop everything should one of the other developments not go forward. That was one of our big concerns. When you have multiple parties, if one goes away, we still need the overarching infrastructure. So AWS is backstopping all of that.
My next questions are for the applicant.
Okay,
Thank you. And this is specifically about programs, so you may need the gentleman that was up before. So you mentioned that there's significant programs that can be placed in the school systems, things that you can do to enhance the infrastructure within the school in terms of technology that you can provide, things of that nature. Is that something that is immediately available once this, if this were to be approved, or is that something that the residents are going to have to wait for project completion to be able to have a use or benefit from that?
No, as soon as we're approved, we can immediately start working with the school district, the neighbors, and to start with these projects.
And in terms of the reduction in visibility or your overall site plan, that's not a new concern that has come up from the residents. I've actually recently had the opportunity to drive down through several of the developments on Factory Shoals, coming at the intersections of Rock House Road, so I get what they are saying in terms of it's an eyesore, it's hideous to look at, it's visibly dangerous for some people to be traversing that road. What are you all planning to do? Because you've got to have some mechanism for screening to make this visually appealing, but then those intersections still have to be safe. Are you accounting for those things?
Yes, so the four, let me see if I can get it. This site plan that was in our application has, I believe, a 300-foot setback. We can, so the thought there is that would be undisturbed buffer, right? The trees that are there will stay there. We understand that as weather changes, that buffer kind of becomes less effective. So we are open to discussions about furthering that buffer. That is what was presented right now. And we think that leaving it undisturbed will also address the issue with animals. We had a visual study that was done so that really because of the topography of the site, all that will be visible, even when all the leaves are down, is like the top portions of the buildings. And we hope that the majority of the substation is not really visible at all because of the way that the buildings are kind of around it. So that is how the site is currently set up.
And this is with the entrance on Rock House Road?
Yeah, so this shows an entrance on Rock House Road. There was discussions about an entrance on Echo Road. So we had our engineers look at that. What is before you is Rock House Road. There were discussions about the Echo Road entrance. I think it's something that, you know, we can work towards if we need to. We were able to make sure that if that's something that you all want, something that we can provide.
Thank you. My last set of questions is for Mr. Pumphrey. You mentioned that there would be approximately 300 jobs created from this project?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's across all 4 of the sites?
All 5.
All 5 of the sites. And what are those, I guess, what is the distribution of those jobs between potential for city employment versus people who are actually in the county?
I don't think there would be a distinction between city and county. I mean, they're all right in the same area. So it's the other site, it's maybe a little further down Riverside Parkway.
And then the $800 million is across all 5 sites?
All 5 sites, all 3 jurisdictions.
And what, I guess this question is also for AWS. In terms of development across those 5 sites, what are the timelines for completion? Because the residents are going to be dealing with that construction for the foreseeable future.
Chris Minganelli, 5 Manhattan West, New York, New York. So with this, it's a phased approach. We obviously, as mentioned, we need to be thoughtfully evaluating the available utilities. We need to work with the Water and Sewer Authority, which we're doing, and making sure that that fits into our schedule and their schedule. More importantly as well, we're partnering with the various utility providers from a power perspective and evaluating what their load ramp is. Realistically, from a development schedule perspective, we're looking at from today and targeting completion in different phases of different buildings and rolling out by 2028 is the target. That's obviously subject to the various partnerships that I just mentioned, subject to various kind of timelines. We talked last time, and I know it was mentioned, just associated with development time and schedules, and that's what we're evaluating right now, but that's our target, and it's based off of those different partnerships and utility providers that we're working with on a regular basis.
And do any of your, I guess, currently pending MOUs, I know you mentioned that you're working with Elevate Douglas, and I believe I heard at one of the last meetings that you all were working out what you could do for the residents. Do you have any continued discussions with them? What is the...
Yeah, so, you know, we're committed to work with the residents. Should this get approved today, like I said, we still have the DRC, and we will work with the residents, with the county, with the commission, to make sure that the site plan that is presented there, 1, is in compliance with the conditions, and 2, is something that they can be happy with. As of today, we have not executed any MOUs. There were some put out, but we have not executed any of them. We want to make sure, like, utmost importance is that the neighbors are comfortable with what's the plan going forward. And so should this be approved, we are going to continue to work with them and prioritize their needs.
Thank you. I'll reserve the remainder of my comments. They're not really questions.
Okay. All right, I have just a couple. This may be for staff. What is the possibility? Does that property lend itself to be annexed by the city?
Let's go to the zoning map. The city itself is off the map to the west, and it's not contiguous to this property.
Which way is west?
Oh, sorry, to the left. Okay. When you look at the property here, as you're seeing the red, At the bottom left of that red blob, that's where the city starts. Summer Lake Road is the last annexation that the city engaged in, so to the west of Summer Lake Road. If this were to be attempted to annex, there may be contiguity at that bottom left corner where it may touch Summer Lake Road across the street. I'd have to look at it in greater detail to see. I think there's an offset. When you annex, you have to be 90 degrees across the street. And I think there's an offset to this that requires something else to happen if they were to try and annex. I don't think it's an exact match. But I mean, I can look that up very quickly if you would like to know the exact answer on the zoning map. That's just one of those where if they were to attempt to annex into the city, it is, I will say it is possible. But it would have, certain other things would have to happen before. I think they'd have to acquire that triangular piece of yellow land that you see below, that is not part of this right now. And that would put them up against the city, which is on the other side of Summer Lake in the curve. The curve, I think, was the last Rooker annexation for the data center that they're building in Blockhouse. Mm-hmm. It's not 90 degrees, so
Okay.
the triangular piece is what's missing in order to get the city annexed into that. They're away from it far enough so that it would require other devices.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. And then this is for the representative for AWS. Couple of things. I'm not an attorney, but my fellow commissioner is. But just
Probably
a
a
couple,
good
just
choice.
a couple of things just caught my ear that I want to ask you, and I want the representatives of AWS to also hear me on this. Is you said these are things that you would look at. As a board, we don't want you to look at them if they're doable, and it's going to help with the quality of life of our citizens. We want it to be a little bit more than just looked at. That just kind of caught my attention. You talked about also the trees. Is there are certain trees that can be planted, they grow very tall, and they don't shed at all during the winter. So would you be willing to make a nice landscape area or buffer of those trees to where those residents really will not see it? If it's sitting down low and you only have to go up so feet, there's cypresses, there's all kind of things that can grow that can hide that or could be that buffer. Would you be willing to put in that type of landscape for the citizens?
Yes, we'd be willing to work with you all and the citizens to put in some landscaping to further buffer.
Okay. All right,
Or screen, rather, further screen.
And we really haven't mentioned much about the changes that is being proposed. I'd like for you to elaborate on that. What changes is your site plan looking at that you haven't done so far?
So at the last meeting, what we heard was they don't want buildings close to the neighborhood. They would like more buffer. There was concern about the number of buildings as that relates to parking and cars, etc. There was concern about the entrance on Rock House Road. I think that's been a concern from this application and the ones prior at this site. So what we looked at is sort of our ability to address those concerns. This site has, needs to stay secure, and so we had to make sure that we could do these things. We didn't want to come here and say, well, we don't know. So at this point, what we know that we can accomplish, we can push the buffer to be larger. The northern portion of the site, we can make that a larger buffer. We have the ability to reduce the square footage number of buildings. And we have the ability to move the entrance to Echo Road so that we don't affect as much the traffic on Rock House.
Okay. All right. And this may be for your gentleman, AWS, who talked about the school incentives. All right, so in my short time here, I've heard a lot of promises that have been made that I've also heard in the past that don't necessarily get fulfilled. You spoke of these incentives for the schools. You know, I'm not sure, which I'll get with legal or talk with plans on. Is there something, a letter of intent or a letter that you could provide us that would state, if we approve this, here's what we will do? Because what I don't want you to do is drop for this to be developed and turn right around and walk away from these people and the things that they're asking for. I believe your attorney wants to comment on that.
I think, you know, we can commit and we will commit regardless of what you all decide, is that if the zoning is approved, we will begin conversations with the school board in the neighborhood as to how we can be good partners. And so we can certainly commit to those conversations. And, you know, we have all these things in our presentation. They were in the presentation before in terms of what AWS does in other jurisdictions. You know, AWS, Amazon Web Services, not necessarily a small company. We're all over. Our reputation is very important. We wouldn't want to come before you to say we're going to work with the schools and then we don't, because I think that has a lot of effects down the line. So while I certainly understand your need to get something more concrete, we hope that you trust that we're genuine. And if you don't trust that we're genuine, we hope that you trust that our reputation is important. And so this is something that we're committing to doing, and we're happy to commit to make that reach out and have those conversations.
Becky Ford, AWS. I just want to add to what Anna Maria expressed and what my colleague Jorge expressed, that the programs in schools and in partnership with four-year institutions and community colleges are not only a benefit to the community, but they're critically important to us for creating a pipeline of talented workforce to support not just our data centers, but those vendors and contractors who are helping to construct and maintain that infrastructure. So power infrastructure, for example, fiber optics and fiber networking are all part of the programming that we provide throughout the K through 12 and four-year and community college system. So those are in fact benefits to the community, and there are some very tangible benefits for Douglas County specifically, but I would reiterate that those programs are important to help that future pipeline of workforce, and that in and of itself is assurance for us as well as for the community.
Okay. The only other thing I would ask is that moving forward, when you have this meeting, when you start these with the school board, whether you include all of us commissioners or not, I would ask that you please include our District 2 commissioner. I think it'd be very important for her to be in on that meeting as well, so she does know when she's there in attendance.
Happy to do that.
I believe that's all the questions that I have. All right. Any more questions or comments?
I want to add, and this is no knock to AWS. This is not an indictment of the prior board or planning and zoning, but this to me is a cautionary tale in why you involve residents on the front end, even before we get to a new industrial development overlay. Before those types of decisions are made, are we making sure that we are talking to and including the individuals who are going to be directly impacted by whatever long-term decision that we are going to be making? Yes, development is necessary. Yes, we do need tax revenue generated from these businesses. Yes, our schools absolutely need tech programs and the things that AWS is mentioning that they can bring. But what we don't want to continue to do is leave particularly Black and brown neighborhoods in a position where they purchase a home and then 6 years down the road or 12 years down the road, somebody gets a bright idea that says that there is a better use and enjoyment for the land that surrounds property that you have fallen in love with for a specific purpose. And then we come in with these grand ideas and we are just laying it at their feet as though this is something that you have to take on or something that you must accept. So I do not take lightly the pushback that we have received. It is deserved, the pushback, the animus. I understand the passion behind it. I have been sitting in the audience where they are, and so I just hope, I know our strategic plan has to be reviewed, and so let's just make sure that we are involving people at the earliest time possible so that we are not always fighting behind the ball to make these decisions and get what residents need.
Chairman, with that, we turn it back over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. We have 3 items here on the agenda. We'll take them in order. The first one is the map amendment. Do I have a motion on M 2024-02?
This is Frank Payne. I make a motion to approve M 2024-02 with the conditions and findings as outlined by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Rob Thomas, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Planning and Zoning Board, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving M 2024-02 as stated, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Vice Chair, M 2024-02 comes to you with a recommendation for approval with the conditions and findings that were read into the record.
Board of Commissioners, you have heard the request or the approval from the Planning and Zoning Board for M 2024-02. May I get a motion to approve M 2020? Is there a motion to approve M 2024-02? Do we have a motion to approve M 2024-02?
I move to approve M 2024-02 with the following conditions set forth by staff.
Do I get a second? I'll second. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Chairman, it comes back to you with approval.
Okay.
We didn't get a chance to finish our conversation, just like they did last time.
I'm sorry, point of order, I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we have point of order. We have a quorum, we have 3. I'm sorry, I can't help that. We have 1 empty spot, I apologize. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir.
Approval 2-1.
Planning and Zoning Board, I need a motion on Z 2024-07, the zoning change.
I have a discussion. Is it too late for any kind of discussion?
Once you make a motion, discussion among ourselves.
Okay. Okay. So here's a question I have. With restriction. I don't know what it is. And that's the question. Light industrial restriction.
And that was the restrictions that's in the.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it like that. Chairman Rob Thomas, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the rezoning Z 2024-07 with all the conditions read in by staff.
I have a motion on the zoning. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and a second. Now, Planning and Zoning Board, do we have any discussion?
I have discussion. I just happened to notice something. Let me make sure I was clear about the restrictions with this light industrial. I know when the commissioners brought up what else can it be used for once we change it to LI, and the staff ran off several different things it can also be, warehouse, et cetera. And just, I want to make sure I was clear about the restrictions on this particular request. And I don't know, maybe staff can address it, the restrictions part. Because
So the restrictions are the zoning code itself. It's
Okay.
the LI uses in table 2.2.
So, but there's no, okay, so no conditions.
There's no additional
There's
conditions
no
to
conditions,
restrict.
additions, so it can be anything. Okay, so I would like to add a restriction to the rezoning request. To put a restriction that
On
is
your
going to be,
motion.
on my motion, yes. So let me restate it then. 'Cause let me restate it. Because there's no restrictions, it can be anything off the table, right? 2.2, it can be anything under LI.
Again, anything in the LI,
Okay.
and if it's an industrial use over 50,000 square feet, it requires a special use permit.
Right.
So you would see it again regardless.
Okay, but the way it stands now, there's no restriction. There's no conditional restrictions.
There's no use restrictions
Okay,
as
gotcha.
to what could go there.
Okay.
And now, at this
So I'd like
point in
to-
time, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to vote on that?
I need to
or does it
amend my-
need to be recalled to add restrictions to it?
Yeah, I'd like to rescind my recommendation and restate it.
Okay,
Okay, so.
new motion.
New motion. Like to, so I'd like to make a motion to approve Z 2024-07, which is a, we want to change the zoning from residential agricultural to light industrial with restrictions to light industrial with conditions can only be a data center. So add that condition to only be a data center. And all the other conditions read in by staff.
So if you do that, the substation becomes null. So you're going to have to allow for the substation as well.
Okay, so we can add that as well, the substation to the verbiage?
Yeah.
Okay, let me restate it then. Anything else? That's it? Okay, all right. Rescind, I'd like to restate my motion. I'd like to motion to approve Z 2024-07, the rezoning, LI, light industrial, with conditional restrictions of only be able to use it for a data center and also the electric substation. And all other conditions read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second now?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on Z 2024-07 as read into the record by our vice chair. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Vice Chair, Z 2024-07 comes to you with a recommendation to rezone to LI light industrial with the restrictions that it can only be a data center with the adjacent substation.
Board of Commissioners, you heard the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a motion for Z 2024-07 with all the changes, with only being a data center and a substation, and to only be used with light industrial with restrictions?
And just a point of clarification, we would like to make sure that Mr. Thomas's motion that includes all the other conditions is read into the record by
I said
staff.
that as well.
Is reflected.
I'm sorry, I did not repeat that.
Thank you, sir.
And the other conditions are read in the record.
Along with all the other conditions from staff.
Vice Chair, I move that we approve Z 2024-07 with the conditions set forth by staff and additional conditions of only being a data center with adjacent substation.
Okay. May I get a second? I'll second. All in favor, signify by raising your hand.
Discussion.
Sorry, discussion.
I would ask that you add a condition to that, that they also have to use landscaping that does not shed in the wintertime, so trees that remain evergreen so that people are not stuck looking at this eyesore. I would also add ask that we add a condition that the entrance to this property has to be on Echo Road and not on Rock House Road.
Okay.
So,
do you accept the amendment, the friendly amendment from Commissioner Kenner Jones?
Yes, I accept the friendly amendment and add that to mine to approve Z 2024-07 with the following conditions set forth by staff and additional conditions of only being a data center with a substation and also providing landscape that does not wilt in the winter and moving the entrance to Echo Road. Echo Road only, correct? Echo Road only.
Okay. All right. I still second. So, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? Chairman, it comes back to you with a 2-to-1 vote.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, we need to use the special use permit S 2024-08 for the substation. Do I have a motion on that, please?
Rob Thomas, make a motion to approve S 2024-08 for the substation portion of the application with all conditions, other conditions read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Planning and zoning, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving S 2024-08, the special use permit for the substation with the findings and conditions read into the record by staff and accepted by the applicant. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. All opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Vice Chair, S 2024-08 comes to you with a recommendation for approval with the conditions and findings read into the record by staff.
Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning Board has sent us over a recommendation for approval for S 2024-08 with the following findings, with conditions and findings from staff. Is there a motion to approve S 2024-08?
Vice Chair, I move that we approve S 2024-08 with the following conditions and findings set forth by staff.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any discussion? If not, may I get a signify vote of approval by raising your right hand? Object? Chairman, it comes to you with a 2-to-1 vote.
Thank you very much. We wish you luck going forward with this.
Shame on you, Chris Pumpkin. You lived there.
Next,
and you left there and you did that to that community. You lived there and you left and you knew what's coming and you did that to her. Shame on you. Maybe not get ready. And that $300 million, we're not included in anything in Indian Springs. And you did all right. Shame on you. Do it to your own people. Shame on you. Shame on you. You let the inside information. And I hope there's a way to sue you for that.
okay, our next agenda item, let's give it a minute for it to clear. Do you have this one, Ms. Duncan?
I do. Thank you.
Hey, question. How do you, since we made some changes to the conditions, how does that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
So
you-
they don't have to, the applicant don't have to go back and approve it or say they want to?
No. Nope.
Go with
The
it?
conditions, we understand the conditions read into the record, by the staff, as well as the conditions expressed by the Board of Commissioners in their motion. So those commissions will be set down in an ordinance, and that ordinance will be sent to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, so that happens later
Correct, correct. The ordinance that will be drafted after the meeting and submitted for signatures and kept as a part of the permanent record will reflect those conditions that were approved tonight.
Okay, next agenda
All right.
item, please, Ms.
All
Duncan.
right, thank you. Next item we have on the agenda is S 2024-19. This is a special use permit for Eric Gonzalez. The request is a special use permit to allow for hand car wash and detailing business. This is located at 10451 and 10441 Veterans Memorial Highway, land lot 319, District 18, Section 2, parcels 20 and 21. The lot size is 0.47 acres altogether, and this is in Commission District Number 1. So the property currently only has one single-family residential property and the remnants of what had previously been a paved parking lot. The applicant is proposing a hand car wash where customers will be served one by one. Customers will navigate through the identified maneuver lanes into and out of the property. The applicant has indicated that he is aware he will have to have a water collection mechanism to recapture the water expended during normal business operations. This is part of the purpose of the special use permit, is to make sure, that we're being mindful of recapturing and recycling water for this type of use. And then the applicant is proposing to convert the existing structure on the property to a waiting area for their customers. So what you see here are the properties in red. Those are the properties under consideration. I'll show you a site plan. Here's the aerial for the site. And here are the photos kind of showing the existing conditions out at the property. That is the property in question. And then the site plan that we had referred to, kind of showing the existing development on the site. So this is in the mixed-use corridor. It is a use that is appropriate for the mixed-use corridor and is also located within the historic Lithia Springs character area. So staff has completed an analysis of the requested use. We did find it to be substantially compatible with the criteria of the code. Therefore, we are recommending approval based on the findings in our staff report that the use will not modify the purpose or intent of the comprehensive plan or the Unified Development Code or any other aspect of public health, safety, and welfare. We do have several conditions. Again, these are also referenced in the staff report that were presented to you. Basically says the applicant is going to need to come to the Development Review Committee to address some of the specific site improvements that are required. Particularly condition number 2, this is located on a GDOT road, and so GDOT permit is going to be needed to complete the improvements on Veterans Memorial Highway. We're going to need to see a fire flow test that's recommended by the Water and Sewer Authority, and then there shall be another meeting with the Water and Sewer Authority before the applicant moves forward, because again, these are all conditions relating to our water usage. And that concludes my staff report. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duncan. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, that would like to speak, you have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then you have 2 minutes.
Hey, how are you? My name's Eric Gonzalez, and my address is 942 Topaz Lane, Lithia Springs, 30122. And well, I mean, I was in this position maybe 12 years ago when my dad opened up his car wash. I was 11 at the time, and I've done this all my life when his got approved, and now I bought a small location, and I just want to, I'm a resident now of Douglas County, and I just want to bring a hand car wash to Douglas County. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving. Okay, he's going out. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. The Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentation. Do I have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant.
Yes.
How are you?
Yeah.
What days of the week will you be open, and what hours will you be working?
It will be 7 days a week from 8:30 to 7. Sundays, I plan to close a little earlier at 6, just for employees so they can go home an extra hour.
Okay, and now that you said employees, how many employees will you have?
It's mainly family run. We'll try to be family run, but if we could add 1, 2, 3, just depending if we can grow a little.
So where will your customers, when they're having their car serviced, where will they sit and wait?
In the pictures in the residential area, the house, I just wanted it to be for like under the porch, so bring out chairs and customers can wait outside and watch their car being washed.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, before you leave, I forgot to ask you, you heard the conditions that were read into the record, and I believe you've received those. Are you in agreement with those conditions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and
Yes,
Zoning Board?
Mr. Gonzalez. I just have a concern regarding the environmental aspect, waste, oil, and hazardous products that come from the car. How would you maintain that?
Oh, I mean, I will always try to do the best. So, as a resident of Douglas County, I always want to do the best aspect so no one ever sees trash from cars. So, I mean, I'll try to keep everything. Well, I will keep everything as clean as possible, and anything that I see that affects the area, I mean, I always try to make sure everything looks great.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, in regards to S 2024-19, is there any questions for the applicant or staff?
How many car washes are in this general area? I know you said you want to do a hand car wash, but how many total car washes are in that area?
Well, honestly, I haven't looked into it, and I think there's a hand car wash. I don't think there's any. I think they're all like flooded in like Cobb County, because we have one in Cobb County, and there's just like so much. And since I'm a resident of Douglas, that's where I want to open up, because I don't see no hand car washes in the area at all. I think I've seen like detail shops, but no like hand car wash there.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, well,
Yes,
I just
Commissioner
wanted
Dobbs.
I just wanted to point out, most of the time, I know it was mentioned even before, most of the time in Douglas, in unincorporated Douglas, you don't see a lot of the car washes as anyway. That's more so in the city. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. And I think the closest one to you is down maybe 78. There's a hand wash detail in place on 78 here, but that's also in the city too. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
One more sec. Just got one question for you, sir. That's okay. Have you been doing anything out there already? Washing cars or?
I had, but I just wanted to, because since we had opened, like I said, we had been up here a lot when I was 11, and we thought it was going to be like, you didn't need a permit, so that's why, I mean, I came here so everything could be, like, in the right direction, perfect direction, actually.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay, I yield back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Now, do I have a motion on S 2024-19?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve S 2024-19, a special use permit to allow a hand car wash and detailing business located on Veterans Memorial Highway, with the conditions that staff presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, I second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on S 2024-19, the motion to approve special use permit to allow the hand car wash with the conditions that were read in and accepted by the applicant. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Vice Chair, S 2024-19 comes to Board of Commissioners with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning Board has sent over to us a recommendation of approval for S 2024-19. Is there a motion to accept S 2024-19?
Yes, Vice Chair, I move that we approve S 2024-19 with the conditions that's set forth. That's that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? Chairman, it comes back to you with a unanimous approval.
Thank you very much. You've got your approval, Mr. Gonzalez. Next agenda item, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have application S 2024-20. This is a special use permit. Applicant is Anwar Inc. This is a request for a tire store located at 1870 Lee Road. You will notice that we have scratched through "and auto repair facility." That was originally part of the request, but the applicant has notified us that in compliance with the zoning condition, he is fine to remove the request for auto repair facility. So this is just a tire store, again, located at 1870 Lee Road, land lot 848, District 18, Section 2, and Parcel 14. The overall lot area is about 2.2 acres, and this is located in Commission District 2. So again, this property is located on the east side of Lee Road and currently served by sewer. There is an existing gas station and convenience store with fuel pumps. That serving is the principal use. There is also a self-serve car wash and emissions testing service housed in a separate structure, also as an accessory use on the property. There are 3 existing self-serve car wash bays, and then the emissions testing facility is located in the 4th bay. And the request specifically is to transition the use of that self-serve car wash to allow for the tire store and tire repair. There's not proposed to be any other uses made, any other changes made to the uses on the property. So the gas station, the convenience store, the emissions testing are all proposed to stay in place. They're just wanting to convert 1 or more of those bays into something that can support a tire repair. You can see here before you, the area in red is the subject property. It is zoned heavy commercial. And there is an aerial view of the site plan. Here is a street view capture of the kind of existing car wash that is subject to this request. You will note that the ongoing Lee Road widening and improvements are also taking place there. And then you can see kind of a view down Lee Road, and then a closer view of the existing facility that they're proposing to modify to allow for the tire repair. So these are some photos that were provided by the applicant. Basically, they're showing kind of the area that they have to the rear of the site that they can use for the storage of cars. One of our conditions will expressly address where cars can be parked on the property. And they're again showing you the existing fence and the existing vegetation that is adjacent to the residential neighborhood. And then what they are indicating here is kind of that distance of 40 feet back. We'll let the applicant speak specifically to any of these concerns that he would like to address with you, but we did include some of this information that was provided. Here's the overall site plan of the project. Again, this is compatible with the existing neighborhood village center as an established use on the property, and then also located within the traditional neighborhood's character area of the comprehensive plan. So we have reviewed the criteria for the special use permit found in the code, and we have found it to be substantially compatible. And so our findings do indicate that the use does not modify the comprehensive plan, purpose and intent, does not modify the Unified Development Code, and will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare. So we are recommending a few conditions. Number 1, we want to make it clear that the use is as a tire store and repair must not extend into general automotive maintenance or services outside of just incidental wheel repair and maintenance. We want to also make it clear that there is to be no vehicles parked or stored in front of the proposed tire shop except those in the queue for entering the bay for tire change work being performed, right? So we want to make sure that this doesn't turn into some kind of automotive parking area for vehicles awaiting repair. So any vehicles that they are going to have for more than 24 hours would need to be stored behind the facility. Parking should be designated such that cars park to the side of the structure and not within 50 feet of the zoning buffer between the existing structure and the single-family detached houses to the south, and that the party needs to work with the Water and Sewer Authority on a flow plan and any other requirements to satisfy their comments in the staff report. And so that basically concludes my presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant, please approach the podium. You'd have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes. State your name and address for the record first, please.
Good morning, sir. This is Riazul Haq, owner of the Anwar Inc. Famously, this store is called Pete's Chevron. It is a long time on Lee Road, opposite to the Lithia Spring High School. And there are many new car washes opened. It is an old facility on that location just to boost my revenue. And the main purpose is they are also called convenience store. This is close to the high school and elementary school. And on this road, there is not any tire shop. There are many times I see parents in trouble when they come, all of a sudden tire flats. There is no close place. So this is idea strike to my mind that I should made a proper use of that place. So that is the reason I applied for that. I will appreciate for considering my request.
Okay, thank you. You heard the conditions that were read in?
Yes, I read that one and we discussed and I am totally agreed on that.
Okay.
I really appreciate for their guidance.
Thank you very much, sir. If you would just stand by, we may be back to you with questions in a minute.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You'd have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time, 15 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Cherie Ware. I live off of Lee Road in the Chestnut Loop Road area. That's a very busy intersection. If you guys know, that's being 4-laned right now, Lee Road is. It's at the high school. There's a lot of traffic in there. I don't see where there's going to be a place for parking for people that are going to have the service, and if there's going to be a waiting area where you can have a place to sit down or wait for your vehicle, because it's, like I said, it's off an entrance also to the Chevron, and it's very congested right there. So the traffic backs up tremendously now. I don't know what the 4-lane's going to have, but I don't see where there's adequate parking or an entrance in or out.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant. What is your plan to reduce the noise that's generated by your tire service?
There is a fence on the back and very conjected tree line also on the back. And I think that the buffer zone we have, that is enough to reduce that one, and on the top it will be inside.
So you're going to have your...
We are putting the shutter on both sides of the base, so it will be almost inside.
So are your bays going to be completely enclosed, or will they be open?
That is, at that time, the proposal I gave that, and I planned that one, that is shutters which up and down. They are the one which I am putting on the both sides of the base.
And what are your days and hours of operation?
On gas station...
No, at the tire
shop, it will be around 8 o'clock, mostly in daytime when the school time starts. And then at the end, it will be 5 o'clock. Mostly, I am trying to make it convenient for the... I know that the concerned lady showed their Lee Road is a congested, that is the reason it is becoming 4-lane. But my lot is 2.4 acres and big frontage on the road and big parking I have. And on the top of that one, I am not selling beer on that store. Even at this time, my location can be qualified for that. Just to keep it a safe environment for my community, I am just losing a lot of my business. As a businessman, sometimes I am made fun from my friends that I don't know how to do the business. My main concern is I am in business to make the money, but I am also to help the community. Many times I see one tire cost almost $100 to $170. When it is a nail, there is no from highway to the Fairburn Road. No tire shop close to that one.
And we
Up
thank
to
you
this
for that.
time, my intention is just to make something and to help also my community.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't want to make a problem to any of my neighbors. This is not my intention.
All right, okay, we thank you for the
I will
service.
try to avoid this thing and.
And I've found myself with a flat tire in times past, and it's pretty scary, especially for a lady to be on the road and have her tires going flat. So it's a great location, I think, for your
I
service.
would appreciate you. Many times I feel good. I did not change the name because it is mostly it is known as a Pete's Chevron. People know
Right.
from generations when they are proudly tell me, oh, I went to this school. I was a kid when I used to come. I am trying to make it very convenient and nice for community.
Okay, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's all.
Any other questions, planning and
Yeah,
zoning?
I have a question. Sir? Now, are you going to close the mission and the car wash? Or are you going to continue that to keep that open?
Actually, that is, at this time, I am not thinking to do on a bigger scale. That is more than emission place is in one way on the corner.
You're going to continue the mission? You're going to keep that
I want
open?
to continue, and honestly, don't know when emission will be evaporated or gone. This is the thing which is, I don't know how long it will last. Many states, they are finishing this, but right now I am operating, and their hours are also 9 to 5.
So, the car wash, you're going to keep that open as well?
That will be one way. Mostly car wash is almost going zero because there are 2-3 big way car wash in these days. New model of the car washes that are building in Douglasville and especially on the Fairburn Road.
Right. So the other businesses,
That one is old fashioned, and there is no apartment complexes around this one. So it is almost zero traffic on that.
so the other business, just the tire business is for sale of tires,
No, repair
used?
of tires. Sir.
Pardon me?
Mostly repair of the.
Just
like,
repair
If somebody
tires.
got trouble and on lower scale, if they need to change it, but at this time I have not in my mind a bigger model.
So you don't want to, you're not going to sell tires or?
Sale, it will be on smaller
used tires?
level. If suppose I have to keep minimum, which are like residential people, the smaller cars, if somebody have a totally tire is flattened, it is gone, at least 3-4, I have to keep it for some. I can't say totally no. But for that one, I have a storage place. The store I have, it is a double. It has a downstairs also.
Okay.
So there will be no problem for me to keep that tires inside stored. I have a 3,000 upstairs and 3,000 downstairs, which is open.
Okay. Because, there are a number of tires, stores that have sales of tires as well as rims, and so I didn't know if that was part of that.
At this time, sir, honestly, I am doing this first time. I never done tires business in my life. And this is the thing, only thing, few times I am gone very serious situations. Ladies, even they don't know how to put the air in the tire. Many times I put the air for them. I saw people in the troubles. So that is the reason I am trying to establish some little bit to convenience of the people.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Quick question. Are you going to remove the vacuum cleaners for more space?
Yeah, that is in my idea to make it that open. The vacuum cleaner in front of those bays, that will be gone.
Okay.
So I will make it that no incident happen backing, coming in, around. Because one other thing I want to tell for the question of the lady, my property have 2 entrances. It have almost more than 600 feet on Lee Road, and it have 2 entrances, not one. On the both, one comes towards car wash side and one comes towards gas station side. So it can handle the flow of the customer or traffic on that one, and especially now when 4-way lane is coming, there will be median in between. So there is no danger to come from the people from other side on the store. That is totally will block. No people can come from that side all of a sudden in the property. So only the people coming from Fairburn Road, and they have 2 entrances to come in the lot. They can enter in from one side, they can go from other side. Definitely they have to go towards the road. So I think there will not be any blockage due to the traffic in the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for questions you folks may have.
Commissioners, is there any questions for the applicant or staff? Commissioner Kenner Jones.
Yes, so planning and zoning, has there been any type of traffic study done to see if they are able to handle this specific use? I'm very familiar with exactly this location. I know there's a daycare close by. There's the intersection of Lithia Springs High School, and it is pretty treacherous getting in and out of that particular establishment at various different times of the day, 10:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock at night. The visibility turning in and out is not great right now either, particularly due to the construction that's happening in that area. And so I don't know how this is safe, and I'm comparing it in my mind to the quick change on Highway 5, as well as the tire and lube on Douglas Boulevard, and watching how those cars queue sometimes even towards the street, and this area has less frontage and space. So I'm having a hard time visualizing how this is not going to impede traffic.
Sure, and I would defer to Director Rana if he would like to expressly address the improvements on Lee Road. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Lee Road carries about 16,000 cars a day, and so we are making the improvements to anticipate the additional capacity that may come with that. I don't know for this property if there was any specific plans to change the driveways or anything like that, but if Director Rana is standing behind me, I'll sit down and let him answer your questions.
Good evening, Board, Commissioner. To your question about the queuing, we don't anticipate any major queuing due to this change. It's a very minor change to their existing operations. And the way intersection is going to look like is once the project's finished, of course, the turn lanes or travel lanes will be doubled. Like the applicant mentioned, there's going to be a median separating northbound with southbound traffic. And then lastly, the intersection is going to somehow realign and deviate further away from this establishment. So we will realign East County Line Road with Ambassador's Drive and make it a signalized intersection. And their first driveway will be over 250 feet away from the intersection. And there's some additional accommodations in terms of acceleration lane for the subdivision, which would account for any intersection congestion that may occur. So short answer is we do not anticipate any traffic problems given this change.
And will any of the tires be stored outside? Is that going to be visible to residents, or how is that going to work?
Ma'am, as I explained you, I have a $3,000 square foot storage place. My building at this time, 3,000 is used on the upper floor as a gas station, and the back side we have all full access of the cars and trucks. There is a pavement, so there 3,000 square foot can be used as a storage of the tires. There will not be anything visible out.
Just also like to clarify, this request does not include a special use permit for outdoor storage, right? So if there was going to be any outdoor storage of materials, that would have to be something that would have come to y'all. That was not a part of this request. So if the applicant would do that, it would have to come back to you. And once again, any kind of like not complying with that regulation would be an issue addressed by code enforcement, and they would have to come into compliance.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Chair.
Thank you, Allison, for clearing it up, because that was going to be my next question to you. All right, we have no further questions. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on S 2024-20?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I'd like to make a motion to approve, recommendation to approve S 2024-20, especially submit to allow for tire repair store. Through all the conditions read in by staff.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the recommendation for S 2024-20, special use permit to allow tire store at 1870 Lee Road with the conditions that were read in, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Vice Chair, S 2024-20 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval with the conditions that were read into the record by staff.
Board of Commissioners, it's been brought to us for with the recommendation of approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for S 2024-20. Is there a motion to approve?
I thought of a question after we've already closed the discussion, so can we reopen for questions or no?
After discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move to accept or to approve the special use permit to allow a tire store with the conditions as read in by the Planning and Zoning.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Whitner, Kenner Jones.
In terms of how soon are you looking to start these operations? Would it be before or after the Lee Road expansion has been completed?
The approval will go into effect as soon as the board takes action on it. So if the board chooses to approve, they will be able to come in, and apply for all necessary permits, present to DRC if necessary, as soon as it's approved. If the applicant is proposing any time lag in terms of when he's going to start this, he's not indicated that to staff. So he would be approved to go ahead and pursue this tomorrow, if you approve the request.
I'd like to retract my motion and amend it.
Okay, we got a request to retract a motion, and we're going to also request a retraction of the second, correct?
I'll retract the second for the
Okay, Board of Commissioners, it's been given to us as recommendation for approval for S 2024-20 with the conditions from staff. Is there a motion to approve S 2024-20?
I would move to approve S 2024-20 with the condition that we add that there be no queuing that enters the right-of-way on Lee Road.
Is that in addition to the conditions?
That's in addition to the conditions as read in previously.
All right, thank you.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. All in favor signal by raising your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries with unanimous.
Thank you very much. Best of luck to you on that. Our next agenda item, please, Mr. Schaefer.
There we are. Next agenda item is Z 2024-28. Jeffrey Stacy. The requested action is to rezone from general commercial with conditions to general commercial with new conditions. This is located on 5966 Lindale in Land Lot 127, District 2, Section 5, Parcel 14. It's a .42 acre property. It is currently future land use category of Community Village Center, and its character area is the transitional corridor. There's a little history for this property. In 1990, it was rezoned from residential to C1 with a condition. That single condition was that it was allowed to have a beauty salon, and that's been the condition ever since. In 1996, an additional special land use permit was granted for a small telecommunications facility that if you drove by it, you would see the driveway access from Highway 5 to a box, and that's what's on that side. But that was a special use permit issued back then. The property was rezoned from R2 to C1 with a condition in 1990-53. The single condition, of course, read a beauty shop. No other use can be permitted on the property. If you read that condition the way a judge might read it, you might assume that you also could not have a residence. I don't believe that's the intent, but that is certainly the actual implication, that you could not do a residence. You can just do a beauty salon, which in the old days that would make no sense at all, but here we are. The additional special use was granted in 1996 under 1996-51 for that telecommunications site. What we've come across here, it's the size and the shape of the property. It's on septic. It's part of an old subdivision. It's very limited in what you could do commercially anyway. So in order to accommodate the owner and the representative, what we've tried to come up with is a way of allowing the house to be used, but limit the way the house is used. And so it boils down to, well, you had 4 parking spaces, you had a beauty salon, 1 customer an hour or 1 customer every half hour. That seemed to work, and so we tried to keep the new conditions in that flavor of allowing a service use, but not a general retail use, and I'll get to that in a second. Here's the zoning map to show you. If you look to the left where it's all yellow, that's residential low density. The property surrounded in red at the corner with the hashed lines through it, the horizontal hash lines, that's the property. It's commercial, as is most of the property across the street and below it to the south. Immediately to the south was the approved mini warehouse that was authorized a couple of years ago in the rezoning process and is now breaking ground for that development. Here's the aerial photography to show you the house with the driveway and the parking area. Across the pool, across the street is the pool store. This is the subdivision site plan. Here's the photograph to show you it's the corner property. It's quite visible, but it's very small. Here's looking into the driveway. As you can see, that property cannot, in fact, sustain any kind of actual commercial retail use for goods. But if you were a professional and you wanted to live there and have an office, it seems appropriate for that kind of a function. Here's a site view looking out from the subdivision on the other side of the fence that separates the next door neighbor from the actual property. Staff's reviewed this against the criteria for special use, and all the criteria are supportive of this request. What we would ask is, we're recommending approval. The findings are that the proposal is of a scale and commercial nature that is compatible with the comprehensive plan depiction of this area as transitional corridor, and the proposed plans and operational details specific to today, combined with additional conditions regulating the commercial activity, provide the necessary framework to preserve public health, safety, and welfare. What we've come up with as conditions, and there's several, the property may operate, number 1, as a residence with commercial activities considered live work, or as a single commercial use without residential use with the following restrictions. Number 2, if operated as a residence with home occupation, the requirements of Section 334 of the UDC shall apply fully, and any occupation category still requiring a special use approval would have to come back before you for a separate special use approval. And here's the conditions for the property. Let's see, that's condition 1 and 2. Here's 3. If operated as a residence with commercial uses or as a commercial only use, the uses shall be limited to those consumer service goods under UDC Article 2, Table 2.2, administrative and professional offices, among other categories, that provide bespoke personal services, professional services, business-to-business services, educational services, or artistic pursuits that would generate no more than 3 customers per hour. Bespoke consumer services are personalized services tailored to unique needs and preferences and expectations of each individual customer. There's some examples here in the health services, specialties, social services, educational services. These are meant to be sort of guiding as you go forward and someone comes in the future and asks, can I do this? This is meant to help future planners decide what can happen there. And then number 4, the sale at retail or rental of general consumer goods other than service goods is prohibited, and under no circumstances shall a restaurant or eating establishment be permitted. There shall be no parking of customer vehicles in the public right-of-way at any time. And number 7, any modifications to the site or enlargement of conditioned spaces of the structure shall require the improvements enumerated by the Department of Transportation impact statement. That's to say, the current use is going to be proposed as residential. It will be a senior housing facility under a category that would allow up to 15 individuals because we're in the commercial district, not the residential district. And so what we wanted to say is you're limited in number to no more than certain number, and it's a 3-2 house, so 3 bedrooms would allow 2 participants each, so you might have 6 residents. I don't want to see 15, so we're limiting it to the way the house is. But if they wanted to enlarge the house, there are some improvements the DOT has asked for, curb, gutter, sidewalk, some improvements to the site. If that happens, then they should be subject to improving the property according to the code at the time, and that's what would be required. So that's why we've added that in there. So they don't have to be created right now, since the use is very limited in what it's going to impact in terms of the road network, if it's a care home. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone, including the applicant, that would like to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. You'd have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you'd state your name and address for the record, and then 2 minutes.
My name's Jeff Stacy, 1045 North Highway 27, Brookville, Georgia. And so, first of all, let me just commend you ladies and gentlemen. Your planning zone has been very helpful. Allison, Phil, even Johanna has been helpful as well. So, I mean, we depended on their guidance, you know, because we didn't, I mean, this was pigeonholed and before, you know, a long time ago, right? So we just basically followed their lead, and it's been very reasonable, you know, very above board. So we do appreciate their help. And we do have a current, we just signed a lease from the adult personal care home. And so basically it's going to be a lot better than a salon, obviously, because they're not going to be driving cars, right? So very low impact, and obviously, you know, helping the elderly. So we do appreciate your consideration, and thank you very much.
Okay, before you leave.
Yes, sir.
You heard the 7 conditions that
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Schaefer read into the record.
Yes,
Are you in agreement with those conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very
If you
welcome.
would just stand by, we'll probably have some questions. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? If you'd state your name, address for the record, 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Casey, and my mother is actually a partner of mine as well. So thank you also to Allison and for Phil, because they've been taking me through this process. This is the first time of us doing this, but we are the ones that actually want to start the personal care home. We've been in the Douglasville area, well, we've lived in the Douglasville area since 2016. My mother actually started a nonprofit where she donates food and groceries to senior citizens, and she's been doing that since 2020. So she's partnered with Trader Joe's, Sprouts, Costco, and various grocery stores. After talking to a lot of the elderly citizens that she actually donates to, they all have kind of like issues with housing, because housing for the elderly community has actually went up, and it's increased. Assisted livings are anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 monthly. So now we kind of want to start this type of personal care home. We seek this perfect location out for us. We kind of have, you know, staff in mind and things of that nature. And we are here to follow all the regulations that is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I have a question of the applicant, with either one, that's fine. So, hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Does it have a sprinkler system in this space?
I don't think so, no, sir.
Okay.
Now, the applicant the Douglas County Fire Department's already been there with the applicant, because I let them in. And so they're going to have to comply. And Casey may be better to answer
Sure,
this.
that's fine.
Because she's already had them out there, and she has all these other things she has to comply with.
Right.
You know, before it can be operational. You want to address that?
No, there is not currently a sprinkler system, but with the speaking to the state and to get the licensing through them, as long as we have, we hold 6 and under, we don't have to, it doesn't require a sprinkling
Okay.
system for Douglas County.
Okay. And is someone will be staying there 24/7 with them?
24/7, and we will have 2 staff members that are actually going to be there as well, 24/7, taking care of the residents and also providing food, meals, lunch, dinner, breakfast, and 2 snacks, and handling all of their care.
Okay. So they stay there overnight, is it overnight care?
Yes, sir.
They live there pretty
Yes,
much,
sir.
you're saying? Okay. And y'all just do different events with them throughout the day?
Yes, different activities. Basically, it's just going to be like a whole entire kind of like outline situation. So it's personal care is kind of like a smaller situation of a assisted living facility. So they're doing things all throughout the day, but these people cannot do. They can't handle like their ADL, like their daily living. So they do need 24-hour assistance.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. That's all I was saying.
And I have a question for her as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Is your business going to be hospice care?
No,
not hospice
not at the moment. No, hospice care is a little difficult for us. My grandmother was on hospice last year and she passed away. I'm not privy to like having licensing for hospice care, but I did help her in that manner for months. So I just prefer not to touch on that type of situation with hospice. I think that they require a different level of care. So we're not going to.
So is it going to be a long-term assisted living or temporary rehab, temporary
No,
setting for them?
it's definitely a long-term situation until, if they were to go ahead and move on to somewhere else. But majority of the time, due to the fact that these are elderly individuals, they do stay placement kind of long-term. They don't choose to move around.
Right, okay. Thank you for your service.
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
it's something that's really needed.
Yes, ma'am.
I've heard that several times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, planning and zoning?
I just had one question, not really a question, but I just want to thank you for being able to look out for our seniors. Like we said, it's definitely something needed in this area.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, you've heard the application. Is there any questions for the applicant or staff?
I have no questions, but just thank you for this difficult work. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We have no questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on Z 2024-28?
This is Frank Payne. I recommend approval of Z 2024-28 with the conditions as outlined by staff and the findings.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, it's Kurt Nicholson. I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving Z 2024-28 with the conditions read in by the staff, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Z 2024-28 comes to you with the unanimous recommendation for approval with the conditions that were read in by staff.
Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board. Is there a motion to approve Z 2024-28?
I move to approve Z 2024-28 with the conditions as read in by planning staff.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Being none, may get an approval of, a signal of approval by raising your right hand. All opposed? Comes back to you, Chairman, with a unanimous decision.
Thank you very much. We wish you all the best of luck going forward with this agenda. Nothing else coming before the Planning and Zoning Board. Planning and Zoning Board, we're adjourned. Mr. Chairman.
Nothing else. The Board of Commissioners Planning and Zoning Joint Meeting is adjourned.